Hi guys, and I'm here. Like I said, I was going to do these little videos for us. Just put that back into a better view so you can see everything. Now, in real life, what I have to do is, obviously, I go out to the aircraft, open the door, turn the master switches on, put the flaps down. It's just so I can do part of my checks outside. We check the Hobbs reading on there, put the beacon light on, make sure everything else is turned off. Once the flaps are down, just give them a quick check, left down, right down, and then obviously we go outside, make sure the beacon light's working, but it's FSX so it's always bloody working. So I turn the master off, then to the outside, starting from just by the flaps on the left hand side, there's a little fuel drain valve underneath, round about there. Now what that's for is it's so you can drain the fuel and hold it up to the light, and just to make sure that the fuel's not contaminated, and plus just by looking at the colour of the fuel you can tell that you've got the right fuel, which is 100 LL, low lead I believe. Anyway, you just chuck that on the floor and it just dries out straight away. And what you do is, in the, I don't know if you can get a good shot of it here anywhere, no. In these two holes here is the arms for where the flaps are fixed in. Now what you do is you just check to make sure the bolts are greased up and that, you know, and they've got a little bit of play with them. Usually I give them a little bit of a wobble as well. And then coming underneath on the aileron, you lift it up and you look from certain sides, or just underneath, just inside the aileron, round about there is the arm. It's the arm for it, and you can check, make sure that's also greased up nicely and the bolts are where they're supposed to be. Coming across to the edge, the wingtip, make sure it's all nice, make sure the lights aren't cracked and the bulbs are there and everything's where it's supposed to be. Moving along to the front, make sure there's no holes or anything like that. It's a little stall warner, you make sure that that is clear and there's nothing inside it to affect it. The fuel drain valve, you make sure that's unblocked, because if you put too much fuel in it you'd like to have a little bit come out and you don't want to overflow and have fuel everywhere. Your pitot heat, now when you turn your batteries on for the first time, just as I did a minute ago, and you put your flaps down and check your beacon light, you turn the pitot heater on, but for some reason the Carenado 152 doesn't have that option where you can turn the pitot heat on. So this is another thing I need to work on I suppose, but in real life you put your hand on that and it heats up. That's why it's called a pitot heat. It heats up so when you're flying it doesn't freeze over and it doesn't stop your airspeed indicator from blocking with ice or anything like that. There's a couple of instruments that run on that. And after that you make your way over here, which is the air ventilation vent for that one there above the pilot's head. And you step up that little step there, open that fuel tank there, check the contents, that whole square there, that's the fuel tank. So you check in there, make sure that you know there's enough fuel. Step down, obviously put the cap back on, step down. In that little circle there, that's the static vent. Now the static vent, that runs the vertical speed I think, and the altimeter, and obviously it takes the pressure settings and it converts them using clever little mechanics like and linkages, and it converts the pressure into altitude and that. Check the cowlings, make sure all the screws are in where they're supposed to be, stuff like that. As you come down to the bottom, hang on a minute, as you come down to the bottom you check the front wheel, Make sure the creep inflation is right. Make sure that the painted marks there aren't overlapping each other. You also do that on this wheel here. You check the brake gear behind there. You can see better there. Make sure none of the brake fluid's leaking out or anything like that. Check the oleo there. Make sure there's no hydraulic stuff coming out of there. So all these linkages here that connect to the rudder pedals. Check the landing light, make sure it's not cracked, make sure the bulb's not smashed or anything like that. Engine cooler, oil cooler, sorry. Make sure there's no debris in there or bird's nest. The last thing you want to be doing is not checking that and then finding out that you've got feathers coming through your vent somehow. Check your propeller, make sure there's no cracks or any dinks or anything like that, no bends. Check your spinner, make sure it's all secured on. Same with this side, just give it a check in there, make sure there's nothing in there. Check your manifold, make sure your exhaust, sorry, make sure there's nothing stuck in it or it's not broken. Same again really. Check the cowling, they're all fine. That door there, that little hatch there, you press that white button in the middle there and it pops up. You've got a fuel drain valve, and what you do is, obviously you turn your fuel on once you first get in the plane. You pull it up, and then some fuel will squirt out of that little nozzle there, going down. It's just letting you know there's fuel running through the system. And your oil's in there, really, your oil dipstick. And usually you want it between 4 and 5. You don't want too much, you don't want too less. Same again, climbing up. Check the fuel in this tank here, make sure there's enough fuel in it. Air ventilation, make sure that's not blocked. Check the strut. I always give them both a bit of a pull, make sure they're not loose. Walking around to the other side. Leading edge, make sure there's no massive dents or holes. Lights are all in good order. You come around to the back end of it. You have a look inside the ailerons. Make sure the bolts are connected and they're well greased. Check the tyre creep. Here, make sure that the tyre wall isn't hanging over and it's inflated properly. Make sure that the landing gear struts are okay and they're not cracked. And the same again as a fuel drain valve up here. Obviously, once again, you take the fuel out. Make sure it's the right colour. There's no debris inside it. Underneath here for the flaps. Make sure that everything is all nice and greased up and all the bolts are attached. And pretty much as you're coming around, you just, after that, you just check the fuselage and really just check the body, make sure it's not bent, it's not buckled or anything like that. You come up to the elevators, lift them up. Just underneath there, you'll have the linkages for it. There's a bar that goes through there, you can't see it on here though. This here, that's the trim tab. Now, the trim tab, one of the things you do, you have to check it. I don't know if you can see it moving down, there you go. What you do is, when you're in the cockpit, you can lift it up, you can see it moving up and down. And also you can just check that bolt there, make sure everything's still attached. Let's put that down. It's going to be taken off with that not in the right position. Now with the rudder, push the rudder to the other side just to make sure that these linkages can move properly. Same again on the other side. And then you just check the oh god, I forgot what you call it now. You just check the tail plane and that, make sure that you know it's all connected properly. Check the tail, check your VORs, your VOR receivers, check your beacon light glass, make sure it's not broken and have light glass. Check the rudder, make sure it's all on there properly. Make your way around this way, and then that's your external checks done. And after that, all you've got to do is go back in, fill in your tech log, book out, and away you go. So, I know it's probably a bit boring this one, like, but I just wanted to show you, you know, what I have to do in real life. Hope you enjoyed.